Welcome, adventurers, to another episode of the Thumbstick Adventures. I'm your host today, Kagros.
90K.
Juicy samples.
All right, this is our first episode of year two of the Thumbstick Adventurers. let's
September 1st.
September
Remember that.
1st. Yes, let's see how the second year treats us. And before we get started, I just want to quickly plug our socials. So if you're watching us live on Twitch as we are filming this right now, we're live every Wednesday, every other Wednesday. Usually find us around 8:30, 9 o'clock PST. Otherwise, if you if oh thanks Talk. Otherwise, if you want to view our previous episodes, you can watch our YouTube channel. Please, if you haven't already, please follow us on Twitch and subscribe to YouTube so you don't miss a single of our wonderful episodes. All right, so today we've got an interesting topic. We've kind of had this on the back burner for a while, but I think it's definitely really good to talk about. Also, considering that one of the games that we will be discussing in today's episode comes out in a couple of weeks. So I shared this article with IDK and Juicy when we were brainstorming ideas. So I'm gonna quickly show it to everybody. So it's an article on the gamer, and the title of this is called "Neo: The World Ends with You shows what the AAA scene has been getting wrong." And so basically, the article. Let's just read the first paragraph here. Neo: The World Ends with You is a video game. That sounds obvious, but let me explain. I'm not using video game as a form, but as a concept. For example, The Last of Us is a video game when video game is used as a form, but not when it's used as a concept. It's far too dark and too grim for video game to be a fitting descriptor. Sure, you play it, but it's probably more accurate to say you push buttons and experience it. The Last of Us desperately wants to be a film, much more so than a video game. And so that's what you get, a film you can interact with. Let's go to the second paragraph. This is not to say The Last of Us is better, nor am I trying. Oh, did I miss a paragraph? Oh no. Nor am I trying to mock The World Ends with You. I'm having a much better time on the streets of Shibuya than I had in Seattle, and I want more games to remember that they're games instead of repeatedly trying to be films. What's worse is that they're all trying to be the same film, while Sony trades in its more experimental endeavors to become a blockbuster farm. There are a wide range of movies out there. The World Ends with You could be fairly accurately compared to Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, but when games try to be movies, they have very specific movies in mind. It's for this reason that it feels like the AAA scene is hungry for the approval of a film world that barely knows it exists, much less is in competition with. Gaming has also yet to establish itself as mature enough to tackle the sort of topics films like Promising Young Woman explore successfully. And then basically, as Juicy and I were discussing, the rest of this article is basically a love letter to The World Ends With You. So let me go back up. I think the first two paragraphs are the important part. All right. So, gentlemen, what are your first impressions on this? What do you guys think about this?
Um, I think it's a fascinating topic. I don't think it's like novel by any means. And I was telling Kagros that this is such a clickbaity article. It just wants to talk about TUI, but I do understand. And there's so many games out there that I feel like try to get as close to films as possible. I'm on a I think I don't know, I might be like a boomer, but I really like my video games to stay as grounded as video games as possible and really play to their strengths. Like I think games like you said, like The Last of Us, I feel like those are games that even though they have really good gameplay, I feel like the story is so important that you end up not like the gameplay falls second and that ends up making you like watch on YouTube. At least that's what I do. Um, yeah.
What about you, IDK?
It kind of puts up a conundrum. Like, by this definition, does that technically mean that God of War 2018 or whenever that remake came out, is that technically more of the Last of Us 2 camp, or is that technically more of 20 camp?
I would say it's Last of Us 2.
Right, that was my leaning because its gameplay is fun, like it's a game, but you're really going into it for the story, and you could probably remove the gameplay segments and just put all the cinematics together and have a competent but very short movie. For me,
I
it's
actually think, sorry, not to butt in, but I actually think God of War 2 does what it wants to do better than The Last of Us, which is to be a movie. Like I think, but because the cool thing with God of War is that it's supposedly all one single take, like the camera direction. Like there are no cuts to like different cutscenes. It's all one like single continuous shot. And from like a movie standpoint, like a lot of movies try to do that because it's like a unique way to direct movies. Yeah.
okay. Other than that, just like I don't know if it really bothers me that much if a video game tries to be like a movie, other than if it's being pompous about it. Like Uncharted 2, it's a great game. It also feels like a movie. There are times where you push button presses, and that's all you do. It's enjoyable. It's fun. I suppose the author of this article is sort of pointing at Last of Us 2 like, oh, see? It's not really a game. It's an interactive movie. It's better than Heavy Rain, though.
I was gonna say, I was gonna ask you guys, what game do you think most closely resembles basically a film? And my answer is Heavy Rain. Heavy Rain is literally a film that you just press buttons. That's it.
I mean, you've got Heavy Rain. You've got the Man of Medan, whatever it is. That trilogy of like horror games. You have Detroit Become Human.
But, I mean, everything Quantic Dream makes is all basically almost a film.
It's basically almost a film.
It's
You could
almost
remove you could remove the button prompts and put it all together, and it would be a movie.
But I think before we get into kind of examples to talk about individual games, like where's the line between film and video game, and also like what do you guys think? Like, yeah, what differentiates a video game and a film? What do you guys think is the big thing? Because I think that like the moment a game has like a really really good story, people immediately start comparing it to film. Like it doesn't matter anything about the gameplay. The moment it has really really good story, really really well, that's because for me one example I think is Red Dead. It's just Red Dead, like both 1 and 2, but 2 especially, right? I think the story is really good in 2, and the world is really really, it's there was a lot of thought put in the world, so much that this could probably be like a TV series. But I think there is definitely one thing in Red Dead 2 that makes it so it's definitely a video game. It's not. I wouldn't ever compare it to. I would not ever consider it a film. So like, what differentiates between film or a TV show or whatever versus a video game?
Well, I mean, for me, it would be pacing. When you start a movie or a film, it just keeps going. You don't get to, well, I mean, unless you pause the movie or pause the TV show and take a break, it just keeps rolling. You go from start to end. It has a specific amount of time you need to finish it.
Oh, hold up. I disagree with you there immediately, because when my brother watches anime, he doesn't watch it. He just Skip, 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 skip. It's spacing the
Okay.
damn.
Okay, normal people just sit and watch movies, films, anime, whatever. Some people can skip if they're that bored. But with video games, it's like, there are cinematic scenes that connect you along the way for the story, but then there's also open world segments where you can just simply mess around forever. Never move on to the next segment. You're not gated by time, unless the game specifically has a time requirement for you to reach the next cinematic or story beat of the game. I'm thinking of like, what's it called? I can't remember it now. I can see it in my head. The Dead Rising series.
Dead Rising or Walking Dead?
No, Dead Rising. It's the Capcom game series where you're stuck in a mall with a bunch of zombies.
Yep. Frank.
Yeah, the first game has time limits. You have a certain amount of time to beat the game. Then you replay it to see different things. At least that's how I understand it. Like, that game has an open world segment you can play in, but you are time gated on what you can do. So you kind of have to keep the story going to stay within that limit. Or if you want to go to a really old throwback, Majora's Mask, Legend of Zelda. That has a time limit of 3 days. Now, granted, the game mechanic in the game is reversing time and getting your time back so you can do things and such, but you aren't allowed to just wander forever. You have a time limit constraint on you. Similar to what a movie does to you, where it's just an hour and 30 minutes, you press play. That's a movie.
What about you, Juicy? What differentiates a game in a film for you?
I'm just thinking back to like my past comments about God of War 2. And I didn't mean to say it in a negative way.
Yeah, of course.
I actually think, I think like God of War and Last of Us, they're like,
great
I think
games.
those are what define video games of this generation. And I think that what differentiates the two, to me personally, is, to me, like, movies are pretty antiquated entertainment. Like, yes, it's like well-produced stories under a certain time limit, and it's a film non-interactive entertainment. I don't think duration matters too much. Maybe like from 1 to 5 hours. Let's say, like, if you're watching like a trilogy of Lord of the Rings, like that's a good movie. But I think it's simply just like movies being non-interactive and are purposely like filmed and directed to tell a story. To me, that's what it is. Like, video games, because they're video games are video games because they're interactive, and I think that's the only difference.
I see.
I think one interesting thing, I don't know if you guys have played this before, but have you guys tried Bandersnatch on Netflix? So it's just a bunch of Netflix clips, and and then you can select options, and they like follow that option. So it's almost like Heavy
Choose your own
Rain
adventure,
in some
right?
ways.
It's like
It's choose your own adventure.
Yeah.
Like, would you call that a game? Because it is technically interactive. I think at that point, like, I wouldn't even call it a movie in some ways. It's more like, or maybe I would call it an interactive movie.
Okay.
So,
what about Heavy Rain then? Would you consider that a video game, or would you consider interactive film? If that's the case, because Heavy Rain the gameplay is pretty minimal, although you do get to make choices. So because it is non-linear, but
I feel like it's always pitched as a video game. I don't know if there's ever something where I question whether it's a video game or not.
Okay. Sorry. So that one you still would consider a video game, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah, definitely. Like,
I mean, you just press button, dude. You watch Heavy Rain. You don't play Heavy Rain. You basically watch it, dude.
no, you play. Didn't we play together?
We
Kagros?
did. No, we did.
We did, right? And then
We all
you're like
played
the
it.
dad, and you're walking around like the airport or whatever, and you're calling out, "Jason, Jason, Jason." That's interactive. That was a video game.
Okay. All
Pretty
right. All
stupid.
right. All right. I get it. I get it. I mean,
What
yeah.
about you, Kagros?
I mean, like, I think your point about interaction is definitely true, but like, yeah, because really films they haven't really done anything to make it like Bandersnatch, like you said, is it's pretty. It's an oddity, right? It's an oddity, and no one really does that. But yes, I do agree with you. I think interaction probably is the first one. But I do think that like all the Quantic Dream games for me, they're basically like films. Like the gameplay's pretty minimal, and you're basically watching cutscenes half the time anyway. But yeah, I think the interaction is pretty important, and yeah, definitely, and is there yes, Stutzy. Yes, Jason. Goddamn, stupid kid. had to go and get kidnapped. And,
Stupid kid.
yeah. So
Weren't there
like,
two kids or just one kid?
I think it's just one kid, because
Just
like
one kid,
the,
right?
the the four characters are it's the dad, it's the detective, it's the news reporter, and who was the oh no the detective and then the private investigator. They're basically two.
Isn't that the detective?
No, he's a PI.
Oh, there's a separate detective, right?
Yeah, there's an actual detective, but there's actually a PI that was hired to look for the
Yeah.
missing children, and then the dad, and then the news reporter who was the girl. So like, okay, so and then finally, like, do you guys think that video games should do more to kind of differentiate themselves from films more? Because like, The Last of Us, we I know we bash on Last of Us on this. Like, don't get us wrong. Like Juicy said, right, it's still a very very good game. Especially the original one. But like The Last of Us, yeah. Do you think that like basically trying to become film is bad for video games?
Hmm. I don't know. I'm gonna let IDK take this one first.
Uh, not narrative wise. I mean, having better written stories is always welcome in video games. We've had decades of having games with basically no story,
Mm-hmm.
where the gameplay is like the thing that keeps you. I mean, Pac-Man, there's no story there. You just pop at pills, man. Come on. Uh, but I think where the author takes issue is with video games that are like just the bare minimum of a video game. Like, oh, press X to do this.
Press F to
Or
pay respects.
press F to pay respects, and then watch a cinematic, and watch another cinematic, and then, oh, make a choice. Like, video games have an abundance of interactions. Not just pushing a button. It's making decisions. And if a game gets too close to the line where you can take out all the decision making or all the button presses and just put everything together and make a decent movie from it, and you see a lot of people not buying or playing the game because it's not really a game, it's a movie, and they just watch it on YouTube. Which is why you see a lot of game creators starting to crack down on people hosting or uploading, playthroughs that aren't creative in some way. They don't want people just watching their games. So, should games do more to not be movies? Yes. You don't have to do a lot. They just need to make sure they're not selling a $60 movie.
Hmm.
I was trying to reason with myself why, in my head, like God of War is better than Last of Us in terms of like what makes it a video game versus a movie. And I think my impression of The Last of Us, maybe it's one and two. I'm not sure about two, but are they pretty linear? Like, can you deviate from
No.
the
So
linear path and like
wh-
do side missions or like do like just
one
deviate from the?
one is completely linear. Two at the
Mhm.
beginning has kind of like an open world area, but it's not actually open world. But like there is like you can explore the city of Seattle. It's not linear, but like that's only so like when that portion happened at the beginning, I was like, oh, this is actually really cool. I can explore the city on my own. But then that never happened again.
I, I think that's the problem. Is that like once a game puts you into a linear path where you can't make a decision to step out of that path and do like some open world stuff. I shouldn't say open world, but like
Mm-hmm.
just do like any like side stories
Mm-hmm.
like in the middle of a main campaign. I think that's why people compare Last of Us with film so much
Mm-hmm.
is because of that linearity
Mm-hmm.
versus like God of War. I wouldn't say it's open world, but there are many times throughout the game where you can deviate from the main story and play as this character. And maybe that's why people feel like with Last of Us and even Uncharted, like they're very much like movies because you can't really take them away from the beaten path.
Mm-hmm. And I also think and like like oh no what was that game? That's why I used Red Dead before, right? Because Red Dead is or Skyrim has the meme is like, oh, who's actually ever beaten Skyrim? Because you spend so much time running around save say doing some side quest for some poor farmer or whatever the hell. I never played Skyrim, I don't know, but I do know that people they spend their entire time just doing side stuff and never actually completing the main quest, right? Or the main mission,
Mm.
the main
I
storyline,
mean,
right?
yeah, because ironically, the main mission in Skyrim is actually pretty short, and if you beat it all, you kind of have no. You're kind of just left with side quests. Uh, I agree with Juicy's take on things like Uncharted, things like Last of Us, where it's basically railroading you where to go. With Last of Us 2, there is that little exploration at the beginning of Seattle, and then it's like, okay, you had your fun, get on the bus, we have a story to tell,
Yeah.
get going. Like, compare that to God of War, where it's like, yeah, in the beginning there is a little bit of that, but then you get exposed to the hub worlds, and you just hub around to different places. You're not forced to go to the next world. It's like, oh, we can go there. Now I'm gonna go to this world and go, kill demons and the poisonous gas to get better armor and stuff.
Yeah. So
Which brings up a point I wanted to ask. So, based on this idea of a rigid story beat pattern you have to follow versus having like open world exploration, does that technically mean Final Fantasy 13 is half a movie?
half.
Yeah. hmm the first half, like you said, is
Yeah.
a movie.
First 30 something hours is
A
literally a
terrible
movie.
movie.
So
Terrible
you're
movie.
stuck
Platinum.
going in one direction through hallways, no choice, no side quests, and then eventually at the 40-hour marker, you can finally descend and explore an open world, and it becomes a video game. I think that's what the problem was with FF13. It was a bad movie for half the game, and then it finally becomes a video game too late for most people.
Yeah. I'm not against video games trying to be film, especially when the result is a much stronger narrative, right? If the story is good, right? Because all three of us, we care about the story, right? We mentioned many times in previous episodes that some of the best video games have really good story, right? Or that's why
Yeah.
you play it. But like what Juicy said, I think the key part is interaction. So yes, video games. I don't think video games should be trying to do what film does because it's just a different it's a complete different medium, solely because you have the ability to be interactive. So like for example, let's say like let's use one of my favorite games, Infamous 2. Infamous 2, Infamous is you could definitely make a Netflix series on Infamous. But like the key part for Infamous is that you can choose. You can choose what you want to do, which
Yeah.
I think that video games should embrace that because in no other art medium to date can you have a non-linear narrative. And I think that video games need to do that. They need to embrace the fact that their narrative can be non-linear. And that's one thing that this article has been comparing Neo and The Last of Us, and both these games are both linear. both of these are not non-linear games, and like I really love The Last of Us One, and I think The Last of Us One is one of my favorite video games of all time. But I remember after playing it, at the end, I was like, how come I couldn't choose the ending? Like at the end of The Last of Us One, there is a key moment, and I felt like had you allowed the player to make a choice at that point, it would have been a lot more impactful. The ending would have been a lot more impactful because the ending was what you got to choose. I was so angry that it was not interact. Like I could not choose. I was like, what the hell? They did the thing I did not want to do. Like what the hell? Like I don't care if it's like, oh, we need to make a second game. We need to have continuity. No, then just pick one of the endings. Be like Infamous. Pick the ending that I don't want, but at least I got to choose the ending in my original playthrough, right? So I think Infamous I think is a good example on how you can have like decisions and interactivity within the narrative while still having good control over your narrative. And you don't have to worry about branching like completely like the story going off the rail or having to come up with every single possible outcome.
Yeah. I think also, this just came to my mind, if you want to have something that's very rigidly linear, then your gameplay has to absolutely knock it out of the park. Your gameplay has to be the interesting thing,
Yep.
not the worlds itself. So, like, I'm thinking of Doom 2016. It's very rigidly linear. You go on one path, killing demons, but it's the way you kill the demons to get to the story beats that's really fun. That's really good. You have a lot of weapons. You have a lot of ways to kill them. It's great. Is it rigid and linear? Sure. But it's okay because you have variety. I think with something like Uncharted, it's like, well, you go down a path, shoot some guys, go down another path, you shoot some guys, you explore a submarine, you go outside, you have a cutscene, then you shoot some more guys, and you climb a cliff. Like, great. Repeat that for the rest of the game.
Well, the thing is, Doom is like that, but probably without cutscenes or story, right? And I don't think it's fair to say that Doom is more of a video game than Last of Us. Like, Doom is Doom because it has no story, no cutscenes, and it's all about the shooting, right? And like the monsters.
It has some cutscenes, it has story, but it's not as.
It does.
But you're not there for the you're not there for the story. You're there to shoot demons.
Ooh,
I mean, but there's story though. It's not like the old Doom. Old Doom, yeah, there was no story. You had to piece it together. But like new Doom actually has cutscenes, kind of. It has an ending. Like there are things there. But the thing is, the linearity doesn't constrain you. It just funnels you to the gameplay.
Yeah.
Shoot everything, kill everything.
Yeah, so Sutzi says here that, Assassin's Creed, actually all Assassin's Creed, the narrative is linear, but the thing is, like, Assassin's Creed at this point is kind of like an open world game. So the non-linearity comes from the fact that you do side missions. And I think a lot of the open world most open world games, the story is actually linear, right? Like the Red Dead is an open world game, but the story is linear. But there's a lot of side story. There's a lot of side stuff as well. And one thing,
The thing with the one thing Red Dead 2 that I love and equally hate is that the side missions look like they're part of the main story. And
Are
vice
they?
versa.
Are they? I don't think
I feel
so.
like it, like...
Dude,
like...
there's a mission where you have to capture escaped zoo animals. That is definitely not related to this main storyline.
Maybe not, but like...
But, oh, no.
I'm pretty sure...
There are some side stories that are gated by the main story. Like, if you miss them, if you advance too far in the main story, then the side missions go away, I think. But they should not affect the actual main story.
I think the one mission I was thinking about... It's been a while since I played it.
Which mission is it?
Is that one mission where you end up being able to dual wield two guns? Because that's
no.
kind of a side mission, right?
That side mission is actually part of the main mission. That's actually a main mission.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Is it really the main mission, or was it a side mission that was really important to be?
No. It's not a side mission at all. It's a main mission. It seems like it's a side mission because it's like but it's definitely a main mission because if you keep advancing doing main story quests, then eventually you'll be forced to do that one because it'll be the last quest left.
I see.
Yeah, that is absolutely a main mission. I'm pretty sure that's a main mission
It
because
felt like a side mission.
no, no, I know, but yeah, I'm pretty sure that was mandatory. It had to be mandatory. Yeah, so the side mission shouldn't affect the main story in Red Dead.
Yeah,
So yeah,
but
so I think IDK made a good point with Doom because like if you actually look at any first person shooter now, right, that has a single player mode, all those are technically linear. All those Call of Duty, Doom, Halo, all those are actually linear. But like the thing with first person shooters is that you know if they were just story, I mean, I guess Doom is only single player. If they were just single player, then maybe it's comparable to film. But the fact that they have multiplayer and you shoot each other, right? Then
yeah,
that's definitely uh, a video game. But like Doom, though, definitely like no one would ever consider Doom a film, right? But just like I think for the reason Juicy said, there is no actual any story. I think even if Doom had a really really compelling story, people will still consider it a video game solely because of the fact that there's a lot of the gameplay is very intense,
The
right?
gameplay is front and center. It's
Yes.
if you remember anything from Doom, it's the weapons you used, the way you could kill the demons. You might remember the story and like how the game ends, how it sets up for a sequel. That's about it.
Yeah.
And
So
if you want to
maybe
learn more about the lore, you have to like read into it somewhere else.
that's why, because there isn't really a story, that there are so many films of Doom.
so, but anyway, I do think that Doom is, even if it had a good story, still be considered a video game. Like I think the ones that are really like on the line are like all the Quantic Dream games, right, where there is barely any gameplay. Even Last of Us, I would still call a video game because the gameplay is actually a part of the game. It's Last of Us basically
Yeah,
like it's a third person stealth simulator, right? Stealth. I don't know what's the proper term for it. It's still technically a survival game, right? You have to kill the zombies, and there's different ways to do it. There's weapons. There is gameplay in it, but like I think Quantic Dream is the ones that are really really dangerously close because they're just literally button presses. And press F for respects comes from Call of Duty, which is also button presses, but but that's actually a game too because it has a multiplayer function, and the goal of that is to kill other people when you play multiplayer, right? It's to assert your dominance.
so Kagros, you brought up Halo too, which I would put it in the same realm with The Last of Us, because
For single
it's pretty
player,
linear
for single player,
for
I
single player.
hmm,
I'm just talking like maybe it's not fair to like just look at the single player aspect of it, because didn't The Last of Us 2, didn't it, was it gonna have multiplayer? Maybe not.
Last
Um,
of Us One does have multiplayer, but it's not really featured. Last of Us Two was supposed to have multiplayer, but they broke it out.
okay,
Yeah.
but yeah, like the fact that Halo's linear, there's cutscenes,
hmm
um, there's no
Yeah, no,
deviating from the
most
main
first-person
path.
shooters I feel like are like this. With a single player,
Yeah,
it's completely linear. I can't. I mean, I don't play first-person shooters much, especially with single-player aspects. But I can't think of any first-person shooters that have like, branching. Not
Destiny 2.
non-linear. That's a looter shooter.
Ah,
That's different.
that's a little different. Maybe
I mean,
Wolfenstein.
there are first-person shooters, but there's like co-op shooters that have non-linear
I
maps.
mean, this
But
is Far Cry. You have Far Cry. You have Skyrim. Technically, is first person. You have Fallout.
Oh, Fallout. First person, but it's like a first person RPG with shooting.
But that's I think what's interesting. What's an interesting question is, are there any games that need to be more like films? So, like, one example I can quickly think of is Zelda Breath of the Wild. where
Because
like
there was
people
no
were
story. There was no story in that game.
people were starving for some story content or like even with some cutscenes. I mean, they do have cutscenes.
No, they did.
They
They
actually
did.
have a lot of
I mean, I
cutscenes.
think it's because it's not as rigid as older Zeldas were. Like, think of Ocarina of Time. That's a very kind of rigid game. There's a pathway you're supposed to go, but it does give you the freedom to explore a little bit. Like, you can go wander off to like some other destination, but they won't let you progress any
So
further.
actually, I think the better question to ask is because I think at that point the question you asked was basically is there a video games that benefit from more narrative, a stronger narrative, and I think every game could definitely benefit from that. You know,
Sure. I think the one genre that has been picking up their narrative chops in the past 10 years or so is fighting games. You just look at what
Interesting.
Mortal
Yeah,
you
yeah.
just look at what Mortal you look at what Mortal Kombat has done. Mortal Kombat has always had a decent story for their games, but if you go back and play Mortal Kombat Trilogy, like they have the barest of bones cutscenes
like
and like other
Infamous,
stuff. But
Infamous is a really I think is one that had definitely picked up the narrative for a fighting game.
Infamous?
Infamous? Oh, you mean Injustice?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, Injustice.
Well,
Injustice.
yeah, Injustice from Mortal Kombat guys, but also like Guilty Gear has picked up the slack too. Guilty Gear had an interesting lore that wasn't really presented in game, at least from what I've seen of the older games. But now, XR'd, Double XR'd, Strive, they got story front and center. You know, they have decent, solo gameplay modes. Mortal Kombat was the one that really brought that up to tempo with Mortal Kombat 9.
So
It
with
used to be
Strive, they actually shipped a 2-hour movie in the game. Like you can't play it. It's not. You wouldn't even consider single player. It's legit a movie. Like there's no fighting in between this 2-hour movie cutscene. It's pretty nuts.
Well, there you go. So, I think that's a genre that's really picked up the chops for writing, moved a little closer to the movie needle. But in Mortal Kombat 10, it's like you have a cutscene and then you have a fight, cutscene and then fight. It's like 50-50. It balances it. Injustice as well has an interesting linear story, but you have fights that break it up, and then like mini games and stuff. So
yes. So actually, in fighting games, I think the reason why they kind of start to become like movies is the fact that those are still games because those are fighting games. Fighting and first-person shooters basically were made to be played against other people, right? So then when you have the single-player aspect, it's really easy to beef it up because you can make it linear. Because there's no question it's still a game, right? And there's no question it's still the game. You just are adding a story to the said game. And the interactivity between of it is just the fact that hey, I can call up IDK and let's
duke it out.
Let's duke it out a bit, right? Like that's the interactivity. So definitely like those. I think that's probably why they started beefing up the single player mode, just because hey, maybe we can kind of be like a movie or we have a story.
Well, I definitely think they saw the positive reaction from Mortal Kombat 9, where it's like there's a decent single-player campaign. Someone can buy the game, play it for that, and then hold on to it to play with friends if they want to. They don't have to get good at a fighting game to enjoy it, which is what other fighting game developers have realized. Have a decent story, like 9 or 10 hours, maybe less, where people can just play it and beat it and then be done with the game, and you get that sale. Whereas in the past, Killer Instinct 1 was just a fighting game. That's it. You just fought.
I mean,
It's just fun.
It's like Marvel. It's like Marvel 3. Right?
No, it's like Marvel. Yeah, Marvel. There's technically a story, but you'll beat it really quickly, and then you're just left grinding combos.
And then you're bad at the game, and you go online and you get thrashed by some Smurf.
And you're bad online.
I'm bad online, dude.
Bad online. Makes you cry because you're just swimming in water.
Yeah.
But going back to the original question, like a genre that could improve, all genres are improved by better writing. That's for sure. I'm trying to think of a different genre that really hasn't improved its writing in recent years.
I think all of them have. Platformers?
Have they? Have they improved their story?
I don't think so. Mario hasn't had a story in a long time, right? Mario
is literally gimped by Miyamoto. Like, You know how much backlash the guy got for putting in Rosalina into Galaxy 1 and actually daring to put a story that didn't involve Mario entirely? Like, he got smacked down pretty hard by Miyamoto. That's why in Galaxy 2, Rosalina has a more reserved role. Because how dare you put story in a Mario game? But like platformers, you know, I think of like Ukulele. The story for that game wasn't that great. Gameplay wasn't that great either. What else?
I think you brought up a really good point about Mario. Like that, almost to its purest form, is a video game,
Mhm.
Yeah,
and I can see why Miyamoto is so angry.
it's his child. Like he really wants it to be an experience. He doesn't want you to be able to watch it and get everything from it. It's a little annoying when he puts limits on what the story can be, because there definitely is room for a good Mario game and a good Mario story. But he seems very afraid of the story taking over the gameplay.
Have you guys, either of you guys, played Ori and the Blind Forest? Is that a platformer?
Yeah.
Stuty said, so that's a platformer.
Yeah, I would kind of call it like a platformer. It has like a mix of Metroidvania and platforming.
Okay.
I forgot about that, yeah.
The second one is more Metroidvania, which I actually started like last weekend.
Okay.
But, yeah.
I don't think that any genre needs more help, or hasn't really, because like different studios do different. Nintendo, I feel like definitely they need to beef up their narrative chops in their games. Pokemon, Pokemon, tell a different story.
Yeah, Nintendo.
Super Mario Odyssey was. I mean, maybe there isn't really a story.
I mean, Mario games' story is all the
really
same, right?
entertaining,
Isn't
though.
it just Bowser kidnapping the princess and Mario has to save him? That's the story, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much.
Although, like, they kind of make up for it by having those RPGs. And those RPGs with Mario and Luigi.
Yeah,
story.
Right. Yeah.
But they stopped making them.
To the Miyamoto.
No, well, mostly because the studio that was making them made a lot of dumb decisions. Not Quantic Dream. What was it? Alpha Dreams. I think that's what their name was. Yeah,
So,
they kind of messed up.
so going back to Juicy's original question, I kind of want to change. Let me change the question a little bit. Are there any games that you would think would benefit from less interactivity?
I think when I was thinking of this question, like, yeah, I think I should have phrased it more specifically. Like, are there games that need more cutscenes? Pretty much. Because cutscenes are non-interactive. Right? So is that similar to your question, Kagros? Because your question's pretty open-ended.
Yeah, so what I'm thinking about, like, I think there are games that need less interactivity, but that's solely because of budget constraints. Right? Like, cause that's actually what happens to shooters. That's what happened to shooters. Shooters, like, there used to be, like, in single player, right? There used to be, like, different routes you can take to complete the mission. But then, basically, constraints and focusing more on multiplayer basically cut down the levels, just basically having one path rather than multiple paths. I think, like, what was it? Half-Life 2 maps, or Half-Life 2 maps were pretty... There were different routes you could take, I believe. I don't remember. I never actually played Half-Life. But, so I think when games pare down interactivity, it's usually because of time constraints, budgetary constraints. Like, yeah, I can't think of anything that would need to be pared down. Usually it's for scope purposes that games they cut the interactivity part of the game.
I think if I had one genre, I would reduce interactivity and introduce more cutscenes to, or more story-based stuff. This is going to be very controversial, but I think RTS.
Wow, RTS.
I think that's really
Who
interesting.
plays RTS now, IDK? No one plays RTS no more.
I mean,
like,
no one does, because it's so interactive, because you have a lot of things to manage and take care of, whereas I think if you pared some of that back, which they've tried to do admittedly and it's failed. I mean, and never mention Command and Conquer 4 ever again. You know, but there's something there where it's like, you know, some people get very overwhelmed with StarCraft. You know, there's a lot of things you have to do to play the game right, and the payoff for it usually isn't very much story in the campaign. They have stories; they're okay, but if there were a genre where you found some way to keep the heart and soul of an RTS without having to overwhelm people, and you included more cutscenes and more story stuff, that would be interesting to me.
What about
I just don't know.
Warcraft? What about
Yeah,
Warcraft
I was
3?
gonna ask.
Warcraft 3. Like that.
I mean,
Those
that one.
Those had cutscenes. Although,
Yeah, they have cutscene basic ones in engine.
come on, man. The best cutscene was the Illidan Arthas fight, man, at the Frozen Throne, where there was no way that Arthas should have been able to beat Illidan.
I mean, it's just like, I don't know. StarCraft, I think, has some really great cutscenes, but then there's only a couple of them, and everything's always done in game. But we're going back to the interactivity. Like, if you could lower the interactivity, dumb down RTS, I think the only one I think that comes close to that is probably Halo Wars. Halo Wars was on console, so they had to dumb down the RTS elements so that people could actually play it on a console with a controller. And it did okay. I don't hear anyone ever sing its praises, but someone tried at least.
No, I just thought of one genre that needs less interactivity and more cutscenes.
What?
MOBAs.
MOBAs?
Imagine if League of Legends had some kind of like campaign mode to tell, obviously League of Legends does a good job of telling the story between the characters, but a lot of it is just based on in-game lore and kind of like in-game events kind of. It would have been amazing if they had some kind of campaign or something like that. I think that would be cool. Oh, Stutzy, I didn't know you were Age of Empires fan. I am a huge Age of Empires fan as well.
I mean,
Yeah, give me that Pokemon Unite story. Come on.
Yeah.
I mean that's interesting, isn't it? Yeah, none of the MOBAs actually have like a story mode. They have lore surrounding them. You have background to the characters to give a reason why you like a character and would pick them, but none of them actually have. Oh, Heroes of the Storm has a lore technically. Well, no, not really. It's just a cutscene. They all get summoned to the whatever, the storm area or whatever.
Yes, yeah, it doesn't.
And they're like, oh, okay, we'll just fight. Fine, whatever. But
Yeah, and I think one other one too is probably like CCGs, or card games.
card
Definitely,
games.
they could definitely use, they would definitely benefit from some kind of campaign mode. Like, Hearthstone tried to do it with the kind of like what was those dungeons, adventures? Forgot what they were called. But those didn't have cutscenes. That was just like, oh, here's single player. But yeah, I think most of the genres that would benefit from less interactivity are basically the multiplayer ones. But the question is, do they really need it? And I would say the answer is probably not, right? Because they've done just fine. I think IDK's RTS one is probably the closest one, but RTS is still a mainly multiplayer genre anyway. So, yeah.
I think with RTS, it would have to be something like where you start off the story at the bottom and you build your bases, and then as you go further and further in the story, you manage less and less of that, and you focus more on strategy. So instead of every map having to rebuild your bases and build units, it would just be like, oh, now the computer will do that for you. Now you can just focus on the units it pumps out for you to choose, and using them to fight larger scale wars or combat or do whatever you want to do.
It sounds like being like a real life CEO.
Yeah, in a way. Imagine
How
starting off.
How
Starting
to
off as
become Iwata? You gotta be a game dev first.
you like starting off as a small village and like Age of Empires 2, like starting off as a small town hall, and you go and you farm resources, and you get to a certain point where you can expand out the world view, and eventually you get to a point where you're playing Civilization instead. You don't have to manage the town hall anymore; it does it by itself. You get to focus more on a global scale.
And then you're gonna retire humbly and go back to the village level. I just want to do my farming. Don't bother me. You do you.
I mean, that there was a game out there I could have sworn that was gonna try to either explore that or did explore it, where you could play as controlling the base, controlling units, resource gathering, and then the computer could handle like taking your armies and using to attack other people, or vice versa. Or it was like a co-op game where one person did the resource gathering, the buildings, the upgrading, and then another person handled which units to build and where to send them. Like,
So I know there was a game in the late 2000s. It was not a very good game. I remember reading about it in a magazine where basically like it was an RTS, but you can take control of one of the soldiers, and then it becomes an FPS.
Oh, interesting.
It was not a good game though, based on the reviews. I never played it, but I remember reading about it.
That was probably Command and Conquer Renegade.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not sure what game it was, but I remember you can control and it becomes an FPS. But I also thought of one. Like even though Kingdom Hearts is linear, right? Would you say Kingdom Hearts is a linear game in terms of the narrative? You don't really have much choice over the narrative in Kingdom Hearts, right?
I mean, like most video games, yeah.
Yeah, but and Kingdom Hearts has a lot of cutscenes, right? Kingdom Hearts has a good amount of cutscenes, but you know me, I'm the local Kingdom Hearts fan here. Despite I've kind of been pigeonholed into this role, so I've got to dance. Kingdom Hearts in Kingdom Hearts 1.5 has a theater mode, right? And it's basically all the cutscenes in 358. And when you watch the cutscenes, just on the cutscenes, it misses out a lot of the game, especially the cutscenes that were done in engine, and you miss out on a lot of the cutscenes. And I think that also might be a good determination on, how much a game is actually like a movie. Like if you strip down, I forgot which one of you guys mentioned this. Like watching a Let's Play or on YouTube, there are videos of like certain games, like cutscenes only, right? Like if you can just cut out all the gameplay and just watch cutscenes, and you get the full story of the game, right? At that point, it's basically just a film because the gameplay it didn't really matter in the story. But like for 358, like if you watch the theater mode, like it's not the same as if you actually played the game, because like for example, like when spoilers, I guess, when you have to fight Shion, right? Like if you watch it in theater mode, it's like Shion's like, okay, I must defeat you, and then 2 seconds later, you see her just getting wrecked. Like she just falls and she's dying, and you're like, what the fuck? What just happened? What kind of cutscene is this? Right? Like what just happened? Like it just suddenly jumped. And for that reason, they issued a patch to show a cutscene of the Roxas and Shion fight. So like I think that's also a good determinator. Like if you go on and you just watch the cutscenes, and you get it, and then you don't feel jarred by anything, I think that's a pretty good indication that the game is closer to a film than, or it has a lot of film-like properties, I would say.
Yeah, you could blame it on Square Enix for goofing on that one, because it's just because they did include like a good cutscene, like a transition. But it doesn't mean that the game itself isn't more like a film because it didn't have that cutscene. Like,
have you
even
guys,
like what?
have you guys ever
Sorry,
watched? Go ahead.
I was gonna say like one example is like God of War. I actually didn't play the game. I just watched it on YouTube.
Did you watch the video you watched? Was it just cutscenes only, no gameplay?
No, so here's the thing. Like, you have to watch some boss fights because that's part of the story.
Oh.
And I did. or
like
you have to watch some actual gameplay because
okay.
during the gameplay, like they're actually telling a story.
Hmm.
So, but because they added those into the YouTube video, it doesn't make it less of a movie. Like, no, it's still very much a movie. Like, it's very heavy on the cutscenes and the story and the narrative. So, you're saying, Kagros?
No, that's and anyways, I want to talk about one game that's coming out soon, and I think me and Juicy definitely had the same reaction when we watched the trailer, and it's Life is Strange: True Colors. I think it drops on the 17th. I think it comes out 17th. Yeah, I think it comes out in 2 weeks. So like our first reaction was like, this is just a Netflix. This game is good enough for Netflix. Right?
The trailer was definitely produced by someone who watched a lot of Netflix trailers. Like, it was done very well. And it hooked us, right?
Yeah.
I thought, but not to say that the game is very much like a Netflix show. I think it's still a pretty grounded video game, maybe. I don't know. I haven't played it, but I know it's very story driven.
Yep, I agree. I've never played either, but that's also what I have also heard from my friends that have played Life is Strange as well. So, and like it's kind of weird too because like we and this kind of touching indirect the article kind of indirectly touches on this, but like we kind of associate with like, okay, this game has a good story. It's very it's really film like, right? Just like what we just said about Life is Strange. Like this is this is basically produced by like the trailer was made by someone from Netflix, and for that reason you get hooked. So do you guys think that's a good thing or a bad thing to kind of associate good story with like it's very similar to the film as a result?
I think it's also based on how the game looks too, and if they're able to uh pull off like cutscenes similar to movies. Because like one game I can imagine having the same argument but just definitely falling apart is 13 Sentinels. Like imagine if 13 Sentinels had a trailer like Life is Strange. But like you can't really
Yeah, you definitely can.
because
Yeah,
of the style.
yeah.
But like it's definitely story driven, right?
Yeah.
And like that's one of the like best thing about video games is that 13 Sentinels I don't think you could make it into a movie because you wouldn't enjoy it as much.
Actually, I'm curious now. Let me see here.
13 Sentinels would definitely have to be like a TV series or something. It would need a lot more time to cook and marinate in an audience.
Imagine if you like let's say like 13 Sentinels as a series came out, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you have to go to their like specific Netflix like portal to watch their shows, and they randomize the episodes for you.
Oh no! Oh no! You'd be
No,
so
that would be
confused.
awesome.
Be so confused.
So I just searched up 13 Sentinels movie on YouTube. The first result, 13 Sentinels Aegis Room the movie is 23 hours. And like here on the comment, the description it says, if you're expecting a perfect I guess he means chronological order, that's not happening.
Good find. That's so funny. 23 hours.
Yeah, like
Jesus,
yeah, definitely 13 Sentinels cannot be ever made into a movie or a TV show. I feel like if it did, the reviews would just review bomb it and say it was too convoluted or too crazy. And I think that's actually a good celebration of what video games can do compared to film.
Mm-hmm.
And definitely telling non-linear stories is definitely one of the strengths of video games, especially when you let players choose the order that they want this non-linear story chosen.
Would you consider it a non-linear linear story?
It's all over the place.
Yes, it is absolutely all over the place.
It makes me want to jump back.
No, don't jump back into 13 Sentinels. We're done with that game. Don't do it.
It's so fun. The story is so.
Yeah, like you want to play the gameplay? You want to play the tower defense portion?
I just want to play a game like that again.
So what you're telling me
that
is
makes sense.
we need to tell Vanillaware to hurry it up with their next game.
I mean, just
Hurry it up!
let's talk to our friend at Sega.
It took him 5 years, right, to make
Yeah, I
13
think so.
Sentinels?
Yeah.
We have to wait.
Definitely a lot of scenario writers were involved in that project.
Yeah. But going back to like games you can watch on YouTube or anywhere and watch like a movie version of it and not feeling as connected. I think a pretty good example of this is when I decided to like watch all of Persona 4 Golden. I watched an entire playthrough of that game. Like a year before it came out on Steam. So like I had no hope of it ever coming to anything other than the Vita. So I watched an entire playthrough of it. And I watched an entire playthrough of it. Like I was sitting next to this person on a couch watching him play the game. All the customization stuff, all the cutscenes, all the dungeon grinding. I saw everything. I saw all of it put together like a game. It was great. I loved it. Now, compare that to the one afterwards, I decided to watch just a movie compilation of Persona 3, where it was just all the cutscenes and none of the game stuff. Maybe some boss fights that they had to put them in there for the actual like resolution to cutscenes and stuff. I don't feel nearly as attached to Persona 3 because I didn't watch a full playthrough like that, where you see a person wandering around Tartarus and interacting with the social links and doing all that stuff. All the stuff that would make a game a game. Just watching the cutscenes, it's okay. It's whatever. I don't particularly love Persona 3. Persona 4 Golden, though, I'll fight you to the death over that.
Phil,
I fucking love that.
can I eat the cheesesteak?
Yeah.
Just because I saw the whole game from start to finish. I saw someone play through it. I saw every little nook, cranny, and crevice they hid all the story and characters in.
So now that you brought up Persona, that's actually a good point. Do you think that? I mean, we already know the answer to this. They have animes of Persona 3, 4, and 5, right? But they didn't do so hot, or they're not really. I don't know whether it's because of animation quality or whatever reason. I've never actually watched any of them. But like, do you think that they can make it into a film? I know they have anime series, but do you think they can make it into some kind of film?
I mean, Persona 3 has like 2 movies, I think.
Oh, it does?
Yeah, Persona 3 has the original OVA movies, and people seem to like them. But the problem with Persona anime or movies is that it takes away choice.
Mm-hmm.
The biggest thing about Persona is who you hang out with, who you pick to have on your team when you're playing. You'll experience the story the same way as everyone else. I mean, you'll reach the end and you'll see the ending, but who you decide to value as being a team member, who you decide to spend time social ranking up, that's all independent. And they can't show that in a movie or an anime without having to make like what-if scenario episodes that just get kind of convoluted. I do know the Persona 4 animation and the Golden animation are both considered okay by the community.
Really?
Because they're funny. Especially the English dub. It's hilarious. But would I consider it an equivalent replacement to actually playing the game? No. No. Ever. I don't think you could ever watch an anime series of a Persona game and ever consider it an equivalent. It just wouldn't work.
Alright. Let me ask another question then. Stutzy, this is a spoiler. You can I don't know if you want to shut it off. This is going to be a spoiler for Persona 5. Do you think, and the spoiler is only going to be for a couple as I answer this question. Do you think that had they made Persona into an anime or a film, do they think they can capture how great of a character Akechi is? Do you think they could have replicated that greatness?
I mean, we already have an answer in the Persona 5 animation. They obviously could not.
Really?
It was garbage. It was garbage. It was horrible.
Well, no, but they don't have the royal. It's not royal though, right? I think it's just.
No, they'll have Royal, but their first attempt with just the regular game animation. I mean, the animation style itself was garbage, but the actual anime itself was really bad. So
I was like, can they actually capture Akechi in his full greatness? Because I feel
No.
like
No.
I feel like a lot. I think the key moments were
Yes,
what
I'm gonna say yes.
you think
So they
they could
can.
have.
Sorry. So the reason why, sorry, spoilers. You
Oh yeah, all
keep
right. Yeah.
censoring us.
I'm gonna throw up the tag to make it easier. Oops. Spoilers
Tag it
for
up.
Persona 5. All right, go ahead.
Oh,
We're good.
so the reason why we like Akechi so much is because we played the first game. So if I had to make a movie out of this, I would need to make two movies in a span of the same time. Where like the first movie tells the normal story, and the second movie is almost like a director's cut, right? Or
Mhm.
like something like 1.1 version 1.1 or something. And
I
that's
mean,
how I think that's how you would like a catchy. Of course, it would be a 5 hour movie instead of a 2 hour movie, but still, like you
I
you
mean,
you sit there for 5 hours.
you could have like a Persona 5J and a Persona 5A, where it's like Persona 5J follows Joker, and then A follows Akechi. As it shows like the mirror worlds they live in.
So I'm gonna disagree with Juicy here
But
first.
I still wouldn't do it. Like the game really sets it up because you have a long burn of, it's a JRPG, 80 plus hours of dealing with these characters and of dealing with Akechi is BS.
So
And
yeah.
So if you're asking me, should Persona 5 be a movie? Of
no,
course not. Of course
no.
not. But if you're saying, can we achieve the same thing as how we felt about Ketchy in a movie? I would say absolutely, absolutely you can in a movie. You would need to release two movies though.
Okay. So I have to disagree with you there. I think like actually so this is a hot take for at least among the three of us. I think that while it made us like Catchy more because of the fact that we played the original one and there was a time gap. In my opinion, I think that I still would have thought he was the greatest character in Royal, even if I had just played Royal. And the reason for that is because you still would have hated him, right? You still would have hated him, and like and but I think what made his character great was that how much he embraced basically his other half, how much he embraced it, and I think most of that is captured when you are fighting with him, like in the combat. And then I think the key moment was when he tells you in the diner, where you tell him like, oh, you're not real, and then he's like, who gives a shit? Shut him down. Like I refuse to be. And then I think for that, I love that Akechi. That was like it was really true to the character of Akechi, and I think that I'm not sure you can actually fully capture that in a film because like a lot of his mannerisms in the third semester are because you're interacting with him, you know, not just in the social link, but like just interacting with him in like when he's fighting. Like this guy's batshit crazy, right? I think that's what makes him amazing as a party member. So I don't think you would need to do two movies. You might be able to capture though some of his greatness, but I think the sheer amount of time you spend with him in the game, there's no way a movie would be able to capture that part of it. And I don't think they would be able to make him as good as the character as he was in the video game. But that's that. But the my reasoning for that is just because it's a time thing.
But yeah, I don't think we all would agree that you can make Persona 5 into a movie.
I don't think so. I don't.
That'd be bonkers. No way.
You cannot make Persona 5 into a movie that is equivalent to the game. You can definitely make it a movie, but you will not be
Yes.
able to make it equivalent to the game because the game is such even though it is linear. The game is just such an experience. And like,
Yeah.
it's a school simulator. You can't do that in it's a high school simulator. You cannot do that in a movie.
I also think you have to realize that there's also the issue of translation from the game directors, the game artists, everyone who made the game, and their viewpoints and what their vision for the game was, versus whoever's going to make the film version, the film director, the film artists. Everyone in that scenario is just simply trying to translate a game into a movie. and they usually end up losing things along the way.
Yep, I agree.
I need only point to the Resident Evil movies and the recent Monster Hunter movie as evidence of people in the film industry not really getting why a game was good, and then trying to make something out of it and completely failing. Or you want to go retro, look at the first and only Mario Brothers movie. Completely missed the point of Mario and made this really weird, crazy movie that is a cult classic, but everyone hated when it came out.
Well, it's a cult classic because it's so bad, right?
Exactly. Pretty much. Because they just went absolutely crazy on everything. I mean, come on. Mario's full name is Mario Mario. What? What?
Poor Luigi. Poor Luigi then. Luigi Mario.
Luigi Mario. Like, what? It's bad. It's bad.
Crap. There was something I was going to ask as well. So I know we talked about like translating video games into movies, but they can definitely do it though, right? Speaking of like you said bad movie, Mario's a bad movie. What do you guys think are some like good movies where they kind of were able to successfully translate the video game into the movie?
That depends on if we're talking about good movies or good bad movies.
Good movies. We're not talking about cult classics like Mortal Kombat and Mario here.
Okay. Because like Mortal Kombat, the classic movies I loved as a kid, going back and watching them now, the first one's okay, the second one, Annihilation.
The only thing good about the Mortal Kombat movie is the theme song.
yeah. I mean, some of the fights are pretty cool, but the recent Mortal Kombat movie was actually pretty good, because it mainly focused on the action, the martial arts. The story plots were okay, but Sonic.
Yeah.
Let's go, the best video
Have
game
you watched
movie
it
that's
yet?
ever
Have
come
you
out.
even watched it yet?
No.
IDK, you gotta watch it, man. You gotta do
No,
dude. Sonic's your boy. You gotta watch the movie, dude.
I'll just wait for it to come out as a combo pack with the sequel.
What are we gonna do with these?
Gotta get that Idris Elba as Knuckles,
Oh my god. IDK, just pirated already. Come on. Sail the Seven Seas.
I don't know.
Or write it
I'm
on
lazy.
Amazon. Write it on Amazon.
I'm lazy. I don't really watch movies.
You should watch it, dude. It's Sonic. You're gonna love it.
But I mean, I could just play a Sonic video game.
But there's no story.
Funny enough, I feel the same way with IDK. I don't know. It's just the movies. Like, I don't know if I can watch a movie right now, but I'll watch like 4 hours of Hollow Knight lore.
Alright.
For real, I will not sit down and watch a movie, but I will go to YouTube and I'll watch a playthrough of Danganronpa 1, and I can watch like multiple episodes of that, no problem, back to back. Try to sit me down in front of a movie, I might get bored.
Do you think they can make a Danganronpa movie?
No,
Really?
I don't think so. I do not think so.
Why not? It's pretty linear.
From the playthroughs I've watched, one of the big things about that series is getting bonded.
Do we still have a spoiler mode?
No, I'm not going to spoil anything.
I
I'm not spoiling anything.
I turn on spoiler mode.
I'm not spoiling anything. I'm only going to say
Nice.
getting bonded to the characters is one of the big things. And in order to do that, you need to spend time with them.
Oh no!
So that the impact hurts worse later, okay?
No,
That's what I'm saying.
That's nothing.
That's what I'm saying. When you bond with these characters and then something happens, it hurts a lot worse, okay?
No.
That's what I'm saying. So I don't think you can make a movie like that. Plus, there's too many characters. How would you develop them all in a movie? Okay? It doesn't work.
Alright, TV series then.
TV series, yeah, sure. If you have like 24 episodes, you could probably do it.
Okay, because like the confidant system in Danganronpa is nothing compared to Persona. It's
not.
It's minimal backstory. The only reason why you would be angry if like the person you're trying to raise your social link level with, you're trying to raise your relationship points with, and then they get killed off, right? Like, I think you mentioned that, like, that's a shock, right? But, like, the only shock is that the fact you weren't You invested time into them, and you can't finish it. Then now they're dead. Now you won't be able to finish. You wasted the time. Like, oh, I should have raised some other character instead. Like that part, that reason goes away because it's no longer a video. It's no longer a video game anymore. It's a TV series now.
I'm saying there's also all the exploration too. Like there's an element to getting used to these weird environments and dealing with
They can translate
things that
into
happen.
They can translate
That's
that.
one thing.
Look,
That's why I'm
look,
not
here,
playing this game. I don't want to
Look.
explore it. I'm gonna watch it.
Yeah.
look. Here's the thing. Why have they taken so long to make a Five Nights at Freddy's movie? They've been working on it for like 5 years now. They've taken a long ass time. I'll tell you why. Because it's hard to translate into a movie form. Because the game has a way of presenting itself. And that way of presenting itself is very hard to replicate in a movie. Should be simple. Should be jump scares. Should just be, hey, there's a dude going into a pizzeria at night, and the animatronics come to life and try to kill him, and he tries to survive. But for some reason, they can't do it. There hasn't been a movie yet.
Incompetent people. Incompetent director.
Yeah, probably. But that's why I said before, people who are trying to make these films about video games don't understand the games, and they fail. I mean, same thing with books too. Like, look at the first Dune. It's considered a classic movie now, but it didn't do that well when it came out. And now we're finally getting a fully realized, fully fleshed out Dune movie. Hopefully it's good. It should be, because the guy who directed the movie is a huge Dune fan. It doesn't always guarantee success, but it should be better than if they just got some big hotshot to make the movie who doesn't really understand the material.
You brought up a really great analogy, and I think a lot more movies should do the same for video games like that. Like, use video games as a reference for the lore, and then recreate it yourself in a way. And of course, there's a lot more references you can take from a video game, right? Like the look of it and the style. That's why people hated Sonic initially, because the eyes were all weird.
Well, that was an abomination.
Upset about the eyes.
That was not Sonic, that was Sanic.
The Sanic.
Sanic. Haunt your dreams. Haunt your kids. It was just no good. It was no good.
Yeah.
People didn't get what made Sonic Sonic. So then they had to fix it, which props to them. They actually fixed it.
Yeah, that's pretty incredible.
I actually think, though, it's important to involve fans in a project when you're doing translating movies or video games into whether it's TV series or film. I think that they understand what makes a character good. I think that's probably why The Witcher was really good too. It was just so, and and a part of it I think was Henry Cavill was a big Witcher fan, so he was definitely able. I mean, to be honest, Geralt of Rivia isn't that hard. You just don't talk, you just grunt. You just have you just have an angry look on your face, a scowl at all times. But I think The Witcher was pretty good. I never played the Witcher 3, but my brother has, and he says it's a good. They don't do all the side quests and everything, but it's for the main storyline, it's pretty good. And they also did The Witcher also. I think one of the reasons why it's good, in my opinion, is the fact that they did the I'll throw up a spoiler tag just in case. I think the reason why it was good was because it did the whole the story was not told in chronological order. And then realizing that is, a big part of it, which I think was made good. I think The Witcher was a pretty good series as well.
Totally forgot about that. Was it really?
Yeah, it was.
Chronological?
Yeah, it was not chronological. Remember, the story was told in three different. There were three different timelines, or not timelines, but it was told at three different points. So Yennefer was in
It was
one.
in the past?
Yes, was way in the past. Geralt, I believe, was also not in the present either.
Mm-hmm.
It was so. I think Yennefer was furthest back in the past. Geralt was kind of in the middle, and then what's her face? Ciri was the president. Was present day.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah. And
Yes, Duzzy. I think that was the big thing, because we had that the type of Pikachu movie that came out, And it was like, yeah, Nintendo really was like laser focused on making sure Pikachu looked like Pikachu. That there was that big backlash to Sonic not looking like Sonic. It was like, whoa, wait a minute. You can't release a Sonic movie where he looks like some horrible gremlin that someone let out of their closet. Like, no, that's not Sonic. So you take that thing back and you put it out of its misery and you make the regular Sonic. Like, you fix it right now, otherwise this movie is going to be a bomb. And they listened. They did it. They delayed it.
Yeah.
Thank God they did. But I wish, they'd done that for the Resident Evil movies and for the Monster Hunter movie. Good God. Although, to be fair, they are making a new Resident Evil series of movies, and they are actually going to follow the lore of the games and actually make it proper, apparently. I've seen a couple, screenshots. Looks like Resident Evil 1 is going to be represented pretty well with the mansion and with Jill and the other guys. Like, it looks pretty good. Just have to wait and see.
And yes, those teeth were definitely nightmare fuel.
Yeah.
All right, we've got one more topic to cover, and I think we kind of mentioned it with Danganronpa. But what do you guys think about visual novels? Do you guys think those are actually considered games? Because visual novels, I feel like, are pretty easy to translate into movies. Generally, some of them are definitely not able to. You're not able to, but like definitely you can translate them into anime because there are a lot of anime made off of visual novels. But what do you guys think?
Yeah.
Are visual novels considered games?
I mean, do they pass
That's
the
a
interactive?
really good question.
Do they pass the interactive test?
It
I think Danganronpa is very much a video game. What's like the most recent visual novel that we played?
Phoenix Wright for me.
Oh,
Is Genosia considered a visual novel? It's very visual novel-like.
Yeah, but
I'm just thinking purely visual novels, like even like Doki Doki.
Oh, Emily is Away is technically a visual novel.
yeah.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh, that was a aim simulator.
Yeah, aim simulator. It's considered a visual novel though. Although it's not.
I think with that, I think it's a video. I think they're video games. You can claim them
Yeah,
as video
because
games.
you make choices like gameplay is very, very low. It's as low as you could possibly get. You're just pushing a button to advance text. But a lot of visual novels do have the ability to make choices that are impactful to the story. Unless you're playing a visual novel that actually has no choices whatsoever, then it's just literally.
But I feel like that's what defines visual novels.
The
I guess
choices?
no, maybe not.
But then in that case, you're not really watching a
Outcome of the
movie.
story.
You're not watching a movie. You're reading a book. You're reading a picture book.
So I'm actually, as I played the most visual novels out of three of us here. I actually do not consider visual novels games. I consider them interactive novels. Interactive novels generally. There are some.
Picture books.
There are some. I feel like where it's kind of blurred, and definitely there are some. Like I think the Zero Escape series would be very hard to make into a TV series. The Zero Escape series, all of the games would be very hard, but if you were to make them into a book, like just a regular novel, you'd definitely be able to do it. But it's most effective in the visual novel format where the images help out a lot. I actually consider visual novels generally. I consider them more books than games in my opinion. Even if they're interactive and they're non-linear, which is why like Danganronpa is kind of it's pretty similar to I still consider that really similar to a book because there isn't actually much choices to be made in that. It's pretty linear, despite what it may seem, and despite the whole the big interactivity part of it is investigating, and then the trial, and the trial, but it's also kind of like Phoenix Wright, and I generally consider them as kind of a mix between a book and a video game. So like But
I
the
think
thing
that's a better way of putting it.
yeah,
Yeah.
it is a mix. I think it's better to say that they're a mix. I wouldn't outright consider them just books or interactive novels, but if they're interactive novels that I guess if you consider an interactive novel a game, then I think there is still some interactivity. So yeah, maybe I should still consider it a game then. But like there
Okay,
are
but what? Okay, but counterpoint: Fire Emblem.
Fire Emblem is not. It's definitely a game, dude. Dude, come on, man.
Huh?
It's a game. It's a game, dude. Get that shit out of
Visual
here.
reading bits, and then you have a little gameplay where you're on a map with units. Mm-hmm.
But story takes place on those maps. There is story on the maps.
Is that not what you wanted from RTS?
Story takes place in the Danganronpa trials. You know, I'm just saying.
I
Things are
guess.
revealed. You know?
I guess.
And that's the thing. Certain visual novels will have certain types of gameplay elements. I mean, Danganronpa's got the trials and the investigations. Phoenix Wright has the same thing. You have Utari Mono has that turn-based combat.
Alright.
with Fire
You want to get into? Let's get into this. There are a lot of visual novels that are 18 plus, right? And there are visual novels that pretend to be games. They have some gameplay element in it, but it's not really gameplay. IDK, come on.
I think my honey pot disagrees.
I was about to say Honey Pop. IDK, that's not Honey Pop.
Honey pot, whatever the fuck it's called. Yeah, it's got gameplay. Match them, boys. Match them. Otherwise, you'd be calling Bejeweled not a game. I think we all know Bejeweled is a game.
I don't know, dude. Bejeweled's a phone game, and people don't consider phone games. Alright, Setsi. Is Honey Pop a game? Is Honey Pop actually a game? You played it, you know.
100%.
Is Honey Pop a game? You can decide whether it's a game for us.
If you can buy it on Steam, it's a game.
So visual novels, if they are not linear, or if they are completely linear, then I would consider them a book. But still, it doesn't mean ultimately at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what the medium is, right? As long as you enjoy it. Oh, Honey Pop is a game 100%. It is fun and slightly challenging.
There we go, boys.
Challenge
There
is
we go.
that's the magic word.
So challenging,
challenging.
Challenging is the magic word. Like I said, there are other visual novels where there is a gameplay element that is not remotely challenging at all. I'm just saying. You know, like that. Then it kind of.
It's like, can you get a game over in the gameplay element section? Yes or no? Yes, it's a game. No, it's a movie.
I see. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, cause you're right. Danganronpa is you're right. I was just being difficult. Yeah, Danganronpa is definitely a game. Phoenix Wright's definitely a game, and you know it. Even if they're linear, they're still definitely games because I think if there's any kind of investigation element to it, that's considered interactivity, right?
Right, but the thing is, to defend your point a little bit, they are much closer to movies than actual games because you can sit and watch someone play these games
right,
and not lose a ton from it, provided they actually do what you would do in the game. Like watching Danganronpa 1, the guy I'm watching is interacting with some characters I would interact with in their investigative modes, and they're probably playing the game I would have played it, you know, with the trials. So for me, it's like I'm actually playing the game, but I'm not. I can actually sit back and relax and not stress. Versus, you know, just pure cutscenes.
I think
you brought up an interesting point, about how like there are several media types that video games kind of derives itself from. Like we have movies and we have books, right? Well, it's like another type of media. I was thinking like music. Like, is there like a video game that derives from music?
Rock band?
Rock band, sure. Like, is there? And then, what other media is there? Like, movies, books.
No, I think you covered at least the media people use for fun, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there's like sports, but is that considered a That's not media though. No.
No.
I
You
don't
have
know, but
word,
you have
images,
competitive.
and
And
music.
Do we have interactive encyclopedias? Interactive Wikipedias? Nah, yeah.
13 Sentinels. You have to fucking look through the. Oh, I don't know, the
The timeline
compendium or
chart.
something.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think visual novels definitely were. It was definitely a welcome media for a form a medium that kind of like it's kind of a game, but it's different than games because it tries to be like a book more like, whereas all of the games we talked about borrow a lot of elements from film. And I think it's great that new forms of media can emerge from games. And I think we can all agree that the key part of games is just interactivity, right? You're not a passive viewer. You are actually doing something. You're an active viewer, basically.
And challenge,
Yeah.
I think. Challenge as well. Being challenged.
Yes. But also IDK's point about, like, okay, if I can watch your game and not if I can watch a let's play, right, and not lose much of the feeling, then I would say that your game is probably closer to a film than a game. But it's still but it's still actually a game because
Yeah.
there is still interactivity in it. And
Yeah, especially if the person you're watching isn't playing it perfectly, if they're making mistakes, then it feels way more like a game. Like, I've watched a lot of Phoenix Wrights, and the first one I watched when they played the first game, they made a lot of mistakes, so it was a lot of fun. It was also kind of frustrating too, like when they make a dumb mistake. You're like, no, obviously this is the clue you want. Don't do that, you moron. But then the later ones I watched was a different guy, and he was just following a guide. You could tell because he went directly to the right thing, directly to the right person to accuse. Like, it was a perfect playthrough. So it was like more like a movie where things just fall into place and you just keep flowing. And those were fine too. It was enjoyable, but in a sense, it did get kind of boring too because you're just sitting there watching text go by and gameplay go by, and you're just like, okay, whatever. Okay, he's gonna go here. Okay, he does that. Whatever. Let's keep moving along.
Yeah. So, any closing thoughts, gentlemen, before we wrap it up for the night?
Video games are amazing. They're just so creative, so interactive, even if it's very much like the medium that they're trying to, get inspired from. Like, even Heavy Rain, it's still a fun game. I would still call it a game because if you can spam Jason, that's a game.
I think with Heavy Rain, if you can mess up a situation and cause a different story event to occur, then that's a game. Like, I always remember the event with the private detective, and he's like busting down a door, and you can mess that up, and
Oh yeah.
cause like him to totally mess up his job, and like it ruins the story. You miss an entire segment of the story because he fucked up. It's like, yeah, that's probably a game. It's very minimal gameplay, but it does have impacts on everything. Versus, like I said, going to a movie theater where the movie just keeps rolling, and the only way you can mess up is by going to the bathroom and missing it.
So, Sussy just brought up a good point, and I definitely want to close with this because I think it's really important. There is no other medium. No other medium. I think it's definitely only in video games where someone outright rejects you. Like, so Sussy says here, give me that challenge of not being rejected in a dating sim. A movie cannot break your heart. An anime cannot break your heart, but a video game can. This is the magic you can only find in video games. Pursuing a love interest and getting your heart smashed to 1,000 pieces because you didn't give her the right item. You gave her flowers, she wanted a book. Guess what? You're not getting married to her anymore. She is not your girlfriend anymore. There is no other medium Where, oh my gosh, there is no other medium where you can get your heart broken like that. You, because of the decisions that you made, you were not good enough for her. Oh my god. All right, hold on. I'm getting flashbacks now.
Oh god. I was gonna say there's some like choose your own adventure books like Indiana Jones where like you can choose to go down a certain path. And it's like, go to page 53, and you go to page 53, and it's just one page of like, oh, you chose the wrong path. You got crushed by the boulder. Go back to the beginning of the book. It's like, damn it. It ruined my story because I picked the wrong way. But,
At least
yeah,
you
I
can
guess,
go back
yeah, at least
and
you can go
unbreak your
back.
heart.
You don't have to, like, you can go back to where you were before and pick the other route. But
there are TV shows that did break my heart, not in a good way.
But it's not.
Like,
But it wasn't because of any choices you made, though.
if we're talking about like a dating sim, yeah, like
watch the damn thing. Game of Thrones. Game of Thrones.
it
My heart.
depends. It's going to depend on how deeply invested you get into it. Like with a TV show or movie, you have to be invested somehow by the characters or by the movie. The movie has to find that way to hook you in. With like a dating sim game, that's like it's just the whole pretense of it. You're gonna get
You're
sucked
asking
in.
to have your heart broken if you're playing
Yeah.
a dating sim. That's on you.
Yeah, I guess so. Like you're automatically pulled in because you chose to do that.
It's just
Versus,
naturally
like-
easier. It's easier to get attached to characters in video games. though.
Versus like watching a sad movie and like your like your family is all crying. You're like, I don't understand why you all crying. It's like, yeah, you psychopath. You have no feelings. It's like I just didn't think it was that good.
People don't understand. They can watch all the sad movies they want, but none of those will be as sad as when I felt when I killed Zeke in Infamous 2.
Oh.
Okay, there is no way any movie can make anyone feel as sad as I did when I had to kill my best friend in the video game. There is no way. There is no way.
That's deep.
And by the way, Stutzy, do you know what's sadder than Roxas saying his summer vacation is over at the beginning of Kingdom Hearts 2? Do you know what's sadder? It's when he says it at the end of 358 and a half days. It is much sadder, and I think I will. That's all I have to say. And so let's wrap this up then. So once again, thank you everyone for watching episode 29 of the Thumbstick Adventurers. You can find us on Twitch and on YouTube. And if you haven't followed and subscribed, then please support us. All right, and I guess until then, we'll see you guys next time. Good night, everybody.
Bye bye.
Good night.